Welcome to the deep dive. We're the show that cracks open really compelling sources to give you those aha moments you might be missing.
Yeah, those insights that just click.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into a question that might just surprise you. What if the keenest mind in detective fiction, Sherlock Holmes himself, actually held a kind of hidden masterclass in corporate compliance?
It sounds a bit strange at first, maybe.
Right. But you might be shocked to discover how one of his most intricate mysteries offers incredibly modern, really profound lessons for anyone looking to truly understand complex problems. Not just what happened, but the why behind it.
Getting to the root of it all.
Precisely. So, our mission today is to extract 5 powerful lessons on root cause analysis, RCA directly from this great article called Sherlock Holmes and the Root Cause of Compliance Failures.
And we're focusing specifically on Conan Doyle's final Holmes novel, The Valley of Fear.
We are. And look, this isn't just for compliance bros. These are insights for anyone who's ever, found themselves staring at a problem and asking, okay, but what's really going on here?
Like when you keep fixing the same issue over and over.
Exactly that. If you've ever faced a recurring issue, maybe at work, maybe in life, a glitch in your workflow, a stubborn habit, whatever, and you felt like you were only ever treating symptoms, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
We're going to explore how Holmes's approach, that methodical, almost obsessive way he works,
Yeah, obsessive is a good word for it.
it really mirrors the absolute best practices for uncovering the genuine underlying reasons for failures.
It's fascinating how timeless it is. I mean, you see this echoed in modern guidance all the time, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. The Department of Justice, for instance, they repeatedly emphasize that companies can't just identify misconduct. They have to understand why it occurred,
Right, the why.
which means moving beyond the superficial, getting to that root cause, and then crucially fixing it effectively. And that in a nutshell is the core of what Holmes does in pretty much every single case.
It really is. I found myself nodding reading this article because Holmes forces you, really forces you, to challenge your assumptions. And it often starts with something dramatic, doesn't it? In this book, it certainly does. Okay, first big lesson. Start with the symptom, but don't confuse it with the cause. So the novel opens, bam, with the murder of John Douglas at Burlstone Manor. Classic locked room mystery setup.
Looks straightforward on the surface.
Totally. It screams external intruder. The local police, Inspector MacDonald, they're immediately drawn to the most visible clues, the obvious stuff. But Holmes, true to form, he instantly resists that easy explanation. He just never stops at the visible event.
And that distinction, that difference between symptom and cause, it's absolutely foundational for effective root cause analysis. It's not just detective work. It's critical in, say, a corporate setting.
How's it?
Well, think about things like a bribe payment or falsified books or even a conflict of interest violation. These aren't the root problems themselves.
They're the outcomes.
Exactly. They're the symptoms. They tell us something went wrong, sure, but they don't explain why it happened. You really got to peel back the layers. Was it a breakdown in internal controls? A failure in third-party due diligence? Properly checking external partners?
Right.
Was there maybe a cultural tolerance for cutting corners somewhere in the organization? Or perhaps it was the tone at the top, the ethical example set by senior leadership. Maybe they prioritized revenue over ethical conduct.
It's that famous Holmesian observation, isn't it? The dog that didn't bark in the nighttime.
Precisely.
The absence of something obvious often points to a deeper, less visible truth. In Douglas's case, the dead body. That was just the symptom. The true cause, as we eventually find out, stretched back decades. To this sinister secret society, the Scourer Gang, way back in the coal valleys of Pennsylvania, a long-standing vendetta. It's a pretty dramatic connection, but the principle is crystal clear.
What you see isn't always the full story.
Not even close.
So for you, the critical job is always to look beneath that surface level issue. Don't stop at the visible misconducts or the obvious problem. You need to identify the structural weaknesses or maybe the deeper organizational dynamics that allowed the problem to occur in the first place. It's about peeling back those layers until you really hit bedrock.
And building on that idea, looking deeper, Holmes then famously refused to accept the most convenient explanation, the easy answer.
Yeah, he never went for the easy answer.
Which brings us really neatly to our second powerful lesson. Okay, number 2, look beyond the obvious suspects. So important. So in the Valley of Fear, Inspector MacDonald and his men, they're naturally, fixated on the immediate crime scene.
The usual suspects, the usual clues.
Exactly. The open window, the shotgun, the whole locked room thing. They're focused on the proximate evidence, the stuff that's right there. But Holmes, with his characteristic, disregard for convention.
He just doesn't care about convention.
He refuses to be constrained by just what's right in front of him. He insists on looking at John Douglas's entire past, his associates, his hidden enemies. He knows that focusing too narrowly can blind you to the deeper, more complex truth.
And this is such a crucial, almost counterintuitive lesson for problem solving anywhere, but maybe especially in compliance.
Why especially there?
Well, when an incident happens, there's this almost irresistible tendency to zero in on the individuals directly involved. It's human nature, maybe.
Point the finger.
Right. If a bribe was paid, the sales manager is the immediate focus. If the financial statements are off, you point straight to the accountant who signed off. But effective RCA, real RCA, demands a much wider lens. You step back.
Ask different questions.
Ask different questions. Did supervisors pressure employees to, make the numbers regardless of compliance? Were risk assessments properly done in high-risk areas, like a formal process to identify and maybe mitigate potential threats? Did the company's incentive structures maybe inadvertently encourage the wrong behavior?
That's a big one.
Huge.
Yeah.
Or were red flags just ignored higher-ups? Maybe by leadership too focused on growth or short-term gains.
That's where it gets really interesting for me. Holmes's brilliance was in his inherent skepticism. He just didn't trust the convenient explanation.
Never.
He'd look at the window, the shotgun, and then ask, okay, but what else could this mean? What are we not seeing?
And that skepticism is something you should absolutely try to cultivate. The person who actually did the thing, the misconduct, they're rarely the sole cause.
It's usually more complex.
Almost always. Systemic failures play a significant, often dominant role. It's rarely just one bad apple, like people say. It's often a breakdown in the entire barrel, or maybe even the whole orchard,
That idea of a systemic breakdown, it makes me think about how long some problems can fester, right? Before they erupt into something you just can't ignore anymore.
Exactly. It's rarely a sudden spark.
Yeah, more like a slow burn. Which leads us nicely into the next point. Number 3. Trace the chain of causation.
Following the breadcrumbs back.
Right. The novel takes this fascinating, almost jarring turn in its second half. It shifts entirely. Long flashback transports us across the Atlantic to this American coal mining town, Vermissa Valley.
Nicknamed the Valley of Fear. Ominous.
Very. And here we learn about the terrifying Scours, this secret society built on violence, extortion, total control. We discover how John Douglas, living under an alias, was once a member, and how his betrayal of them years and years ago planted the seeds for his eventual murder.
So it wasn't just a random event.
Not at all. It's this long, complex story unfolding over decades. It wasn't sudden or isolated.
And that narrative structure, it perfectly illustrates what we call the chain of causation. Misconduct, or really any significant failure, it doesn't just appear out of thin air. It's the product of multiple, often interconnected failures that build on each other, sometimes over years.
Like dominoes falling.
Kind of, yeah. So for you, tracing this chain means asking a series of deeper questions, moving backward from the incident itself. First, what immediate conditions enable the misconduct? For instance, maybe a lack of dual sign-off on payments allowed one person to act alone, or a loophole in some procedure.
The immediate trigger.
Right. Then second, what systemic weaknesses created those conditions?
Yeah.
Maybe an under-resourced compliance team meant they couldn't effectively monitor high-risk third parties, which created the environment for that lack of dual sign-off.
Okay, makes sense.
And then finally, the deepest level. What cultural or leadership failures underpinned those systemic weaknesses? This could be leadership just tolerating risky behavior, or a pervasive failure to invest properly in critical compliance infrastructure because, short-term revenue was prioritized above everything else.
So, just like Douglas's fate was tied to that whole long series of decisions and events back in the Valley of Fear, corporate misconduct often has roots stretching back years, sometimes even decades.
It's a lineage of problems.
Yeah, a lineage, I like that, where one failure enables the next, setting the stage for bigger issues down the line. It's almost like that slow-motion domino effect we mentioned.
Exactly. And a proper root cause analysis must uncover that entire lineage. You have to map out the why behind the why.
Keep asking why.
Keep asking why. Because that ensures remediation addresses not just the immediate gap, but also the deeper organizational culture and structures that allowed it in the first place. Otherwise, you're just, patching a leak without fixing the burst pipe that caused it.
And sometimes those deeper roots, they're less about procedures and rules and more about, well, pervasive human stuff, like fear.
Absolutely.
The Valley of Fear isn't just a dramatic name, is it? It's literally a description of the psychological climate there. Which brings us to point 4. Consider the role of fear and culture.
This is huge, often overlooked, but huge.
Those Vermissa Valley chapters, they aren't just about violence and, a criminal gang. They vividly portray the pervasive role of fear.
It hangs over everything.
It really does. The Scours maintained their dominance not just through physical threats, but by creating this powerful culture of silence. Miners, townspeople, even law enforcement, they were all too afraid to speak out against the gang. Fear, not loyalty, was what sustained their system of control.
And that resonates so powerfully with compliance failures in modern organizations. Many issues are perpetuated not because people actually approve of the misconduct.
No, of course not.
But precisely because they are afraid to challenge it. Fear of retaliation, fear of damaging your career, or even just social isolation. These things can effectively silence employees. They prevent vital information from reaching the people who need to act on it.
So the problem just festers.
It festers. And this is exactly why the Department of Justice, in its guidance to companies, so strongly emphasizes the importance of a strong speak-up culture.
Makes sense.
So when you're conducting an RCA, it's simply not enough to just look at the procedural gaps. You absolutely must ask, did employees have safe, anonymous ways to report concerns? Were whistleblowers protected and supported after they raised concerns?
That's critical.
Was there any evidence of retaliation or intimidation against people who spoke up? Did leadership actually model openness to hearing bad news, even when it was difficult? Or did they, shoot the messenger?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Holmes understood that this systemic fear corrupted the entire valley. It made it ripe for exploitation and sustained wrongdoing. It was like a cultural cancer.
And you have to be just as attentive to whether fear is distorting your own organization or any system you're analyzing. Because without addressing that fundamental cultural element, that lack of psychological safety, any remediation you try to put in place will be incomplete. It'll ultimately be ineffective. You won't truly solve the problem if people are too scared to tell you what the problem really is.
Okay, so if you've done all that hard work, you've identified the symptom, looked beyond the obvious folks, traced the whole chain of causation, and understood the role of fear in culture. What's the final crucial step?
Making sure it sticks.
Right. It's not just about solving the immediate crime, is it? It's ensuring it doesn't happen again. And that's number 5. Ensure remediation aligns with the root cause.
You have to connect the solution to the real problem.
Exactly. At the novel's conclusion, Holmes brilliantly unravels the mystery, as he does. But justice isn't perfectly served.
No, it's messy.
John Douglas escapes one threat only to meet another, unrelated one later. And the Scarer gang. Though they're weakened, they persist. In Doyle's fictional universe, the resolution is partial. The remediation, you could say, is incomplete.
The underlying problem isn't fully eradicated.
Right.
Now, in compliance, and really in any effective problem solving, such half measures are simply unacceptable.
Once you've identified a root cause, the remediation must directly address it.
No Band-Aids.
No Band-Aids on broken bones. If the issue was, say, weak third-party oversight, remediation means strengthening those due diligence processes, maybe implementing better monitoring, not just firing the individual sales manager who was involved.
That's just dealing with the symptom again.
Exactly. If the problem was a problematic tone at the top, remediation might require significant leadership changes, or enhanced training across the whole organization, maybe revised incentive structures that genuinely reward ethical behavior, not just short-term results.
And the Department of Justice has made this abundantly clear, hasn't it? Cosmetic fixes just won't cut it.
Not at all. You have to demonstrate that you not only understood why the misconduct occurred, but also that you implemented durable, lasting changes to prevent it from happening again. It's about building resilience into the system, not just reacting after the fact.
And Holmes's failure, if you want to call it that, to completely eradicate the Scourers serves as this powerful reminder of what happens when root causes are left unresolved.
The problem comes back.
The problems reemerge, often in new, maybe equally dangerous forms. You solve one symptom and another one just pops up. It's like playing whack-a-mole almost.
Okay, let's try and unpack this and bring it all together. For you listening, whether you're deep in compliance work or just someone tackling complex problems in your own life or work, here are 5 practical guidelines for conducting a truly Holmesian root cause analysis.
The key takeaways.
Exactly. First, distinguish symptom from cause. Don't mistake the visible issue, the immediate misconduct, for its true root. Always ask why, again and again.
Keep digging.
Keep digging until you can't go any deeper. Be skeptical of the obvious.
Second, expand the scope. Look beyond the immediate wrongdoer. Understand the systemic failures, the processes, the organizational environment that enabled the problem.
It's rarely just one person.
Almost never. Third, trace the causation chain. Map out how things unfolded, the immediate conditions, the systemic weaknesses, and the cultural or leadership factors that all contributed. Reveal its full lineage.
How did one thing lead to another?
Right. Fourth, and this is critically important, evaluate the culture of fear. You have to ensure that employees, or really anyone involved, feel safe and empowered to raise concerns without fear of reprisal.
Psychological safety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A silent system is a broken system. And finally, fifth, remediate fully. Address the actual root causes you found, not just the surface-level gaps. Ensure your solutions are durable, that they'll last, and truly prevent recurrence. Make the system stronger.
Solid advice. So what does this all mean for you now, armed with these Holmesian insights? Well, Sherlock Holmes famously observed, "There is nothing more deceptive than an obvious fact."
Such a great quote.
Isn't it? And the Valley of Fear is built entirely on that very insight. What seems obvious, the dead man, the apparent intruder, the shotgun, it all turns out to be utterly deceptive. It masks this complex, decades-old history of systemic corruption and pervasive fear that ultimately led to the crime.
And for compliance professionals, well, indeed for anyone grappling with significant challenges, the exact same principle applies. Misconduct, complex problems, they are rarely as simple as they first appear.
Yeah.
A true root cause analysis demands that Holmesian rigor. Deep skepticism of the obvious, relentless digging into systemic and cultural factors, and an absolute insistence on complete, durable remediation.
And today, where understanding prevention is just as critical, if not more so than detection, RCA is more vital than ever.
It really is. It's about proactively building integrity and resilience into your systems, not just reacting when things inevitably go wrong.
So if Holmes were a modern compliance officer, or maybe just an expert in problem solving,
Which he basically was.
right, he would undoubtedly remind us that the case is never truly solved until the root causes are unearthed, fully understood, and properly addressed. Only then can an organization, or really any system, truly move beyond its own valley of fear into the light of lasting integrity and accountability.
Absolutely. So maybe the question for you listening is, what aspect of Holmes's approach to uncovering the why do you think you'll apply next time you face a tricky challenge?
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.